The Galactic Council chamber floated in the void between stars, a massive station where 47 different species gathered to maintain peace across known space. Today, the assembled delegates studied a small blue planet on their holographic screens with barely hidden contempt. Commander Vrelt of the Tasharan military stood apart from the others, his scaled features tight with concern as he reviewed the data. The planet was called Earth, home to a species that called themselves humans. They had just discovered faster-than-light travel and were requesting membership in the Council. Ambassador Quillen spread his feathered wings and addressed the assembly. These humans claim they want to help protect galactic trade routes. They say they can contribute to our security forces. The chamber erupted in laughter. The Vorash delegate, a being made of living crystal, produced sounds like breaking glass. They have only 300 ships. Our smallest member nation has 5,000. What could they possibly offer us? Director Thane, the ancient leader of the council, raised one weathered hand for silence. His species had governed the galaxy for 12,000 years, and his word was law. We will not grant them full membership. However, tradition requires we give them a chance to prove themselves. Assign them to patrol the outer fringe for 6 cycles. If they survive, we will discuss this matter again. Vrelt felt his heart sink. The outer fringe was where careers went to die. Pirates, criminals, and rogue machines infested that region of space. No single species had successfully controlled it in living memory. Assigning the humans there was essentially a polite rejection. He watched the human delegation receive the news through their communication link. Their leader, Admiral Marcus Webb, was a tall man with gray hair and steady eyes. He listened to the council's decision, nodded once, and simply said, "We accept." "When do we begin?" No argument. No negotiation. Just acceptance. Vrelt found that response deeply unsettling. 3 weeks passed. Vrelt continued his usual duties, analyzing threat reports and coordinating council security forces. Then his computer terminal began flashing urgent alerts. He pulled up the data, certain there had been some mistake. Pirate activity in the outer fringe had dropped by 40%. He checked the numbers. Again, they were accurate. In just 3 weeks, the humans had accomplished what the Council had failed to do. In decades, Vrelt accessed the surveillance feeds from automated stations scattered throughout the fringe. What he saw made his blood run cold. Human ships moved unlike anything he had studied in 2 centuries of military service. They did not form the traditional battle lines that every civilized species used. Instead, they traveled in small groups, appearing without warning, attacking with terrifying precision, and disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. One recording showed a single human destroyer encountering 3 pirate cruisers. Standard protocol dictated immediate retreat when outnumbered. The human ship did the opposite. It accelerated straight toward the enemy, all weapons firing. The destroyer absorbed damage that should have destroyed it, while systematically disabling each pirate vessel. Within 4 minutes, all 3 enemies drifted powerless in space. Vrelt watched engagement after engagement. The pattern was always the same. Humans struck hard, struck fast, and showed absolutely no mercy. They did not disable enemy ships and capture crews. They destroyed everything completely. He began reviewing human history files that they had provided to the Council. What he discovered kept him awake for 3 nights. Humanity had been at war for their entire recorded history. Not occasional conflicts like other species, but constant, unending warfare. They had fought each other for thousands of years, developing weapons that could destroy their own planet. They had refined the art of killing into a science, while other civilizations had evolved beyond violence after reaching the stars. Humans had simply brought their talent for destruction with them. By the end of the first cycle, pirate attacks in the outer fringe had stopped completely. The region that had been lawless for 3,000 years was now safer than most core worlds. Merchant ships reported traveling without incident under human protection, the Council noticed. "Perhaps we judge them too quickly," Quillen admitted during a private session. "Their results are impressive. Their methods are frightening," Director Thane replied. "I have watched their combat recordings. They take no prisoners. They show no restraint. Every battle ends with complete destruction of the enemy. Vrelt had watched those same recordings. He had seen human soldiers boarding enemy stations, moving through corridors with machine-like efficiency. Each warrior covered specific angles, anticipated threats, and adapted to resistance instantly. They fought as individuals but functioned as a single organism. Where did they learn these tactics? Quillen asked. From each other, Vrelt answered quietly. They have been fighting themselves for so long that warfare is embedded in their culture. Their children play war games? Their entertainment depicts battles. Their entire civilization is built around conflict and competition. As the second cycle began, human behavior changed. Their ships stopped hunting pirates and instead took defensive positions around civilian shipping lanes. They offered free protection to any merchant vessel, regardless of species or cargo. Trade flourished under their watch. Captains reported that human ships seemed to predict attacks before they happened. Their ability to read patterns and anticipate danger was unlike anything seen before. Then everything changed. A distress signal screamed across space from Hestrix Minor, a Keltorian colony world. The transmission was brief, cut short by weapons fire. Initial scans showed attackers using technology far beyond anything in Council records. The nearest Council fleet was 6 days away. A human battle group was 18 hours from the colony. Vrelt listened as director. Thane made the only possible decision during an emergency council session. Authorize human intervention immediately. Send them all available data on the attackers. Admiral Webb responded within seconds. Understood. What are our rules of engagement? The question hung in the air. No other species ever asked for permission to use force when protecting innocents. Thane hesitated, then replied, protect the colony. Use whatever force is necessary. Acknowledged, Webb said simply. Vrelt pulled up the tactical display. Watching 3 human cruisers and 6 destroyers change course toward Hestrix Minor, their formation shifted into what human records called a spearhead pattern. Designed for maximum offensive power, the colony's defense systems had captured images before failing. Vrelt studied the attackers and felt ice flow through his veins. The ships were organic, covered in pulsing bioluminescent tissue, half machine and half creature, the Devourer swarm, an ancient horror from the galactic core, thought extinct for 5,000 years. 23. Bioships against 9 human vessels. The humans maintained complete silence as they approached. No communication signals at all. They were hunting. The Devourers detected them and moved to intercept. The mathematics were simple and brutal. Humanity was outnumbered and facing an enemy that had destroyed entire civilizations. Admiral Webb's voice cut through the silence with 3 words. All batteries. Fire. The galaxy was about to learn what humans truly were. The first human missiles struck before the Devourer swarm could react. Vrelt watched his tactical display in stunned silence as streams of projectiles crossed the distance between the 2 fleets. The weapons moved faster than anything in Council arsenals, tracking their targets with unnatural precision. 3 bioships exploded in brilliant flashes of green and orange fire. The organic hulls ruptured, spilling their internal fluids into the void of space. The remaining Devourers scattered, abandoning their tight formation. It was the correct tactical response, but the humans had already anticipated it. The human destroyers broke formation, each one selecting a different target and pursuing with relentless determination. They fight like predators, Quillen whispered, watching the battle feed alongside Vrelt. Not like soldiers, but like hunters. Vrelt said nothing. He was too busy analyzing the human combat patterns, trying to understand what he was witnessing, a devourer. Bioship fired its plasma cannons at the human cruiser designated Liberty. The green energy beams should have melted through the hull, but the human ship rolled at the last instant, presenting its thickest armor. The plasma splashed harmlessly across reinforced plating while the Liberty's own weapons carved through the bioship's exposed underbelly. Every human vessel fought this way. They absorbed hits on their strongest points while targeting enemy weak spots with surgical accuracy. It was as if they could read their opponent's intentions before they acted. How are they doing this? Quillen demanded. Our best combat computers cannot predict enemy movement this accurately. They are not using computers, Vrelt realized. Those are human commanders making those decisions. All of them simultaneously in real time. The Devourers tried to adapt. 5 bioships converged on a single human destroyer, the Relentless, attempting to overwhelm it with concentrated fire. The destroyer should have been destroyed in seconds. Instead, it dove beneath their firing arc while launching what humans called counter-missiles. The small weapons shot toward the bioships. But instead of exploding on impact, they detonated in precise patterns that created overlapping shock waves. The bioships, caught in the carefully calculated blast zones, collided with each other in a tangle of torn organic tissue and shattered. Mechanical components, the Relentless emerged from the chaos, undamaged, and immediately selected its next target. Vrelt had studied warfare for 200 years. He had analyzed every major battle in galactic history. He had never seen anything like this. The humans were not just fighting the Devourers. They were dismantling them. Admiral Webb's voice came through on the open channel, calm and controlled. Delta Wing, push them toward the colony's moon. Gamma Wing, prepare the trap. 3 human ships accelerated, herding the remaining Devourers toward Hestrix Minor's largest satellite. The bioships, desperate to escape, took the bait and fled in that direction. They never saw the 3 human destroyers waiting in the moon's shadow. The ambush was perfect. The hidden destroyers opened fire at point-blank range, their weapons tearing through the Devourers from behind. Within seconds, 8 more bioships were reduced to drifting wreckage. The last 4 Devourers attempted to retreat, their organic engines pulsing with desperate energy. The human ships pursued without hesitation, running them down like wolves chasing wounded prey. It was not a battle. It was an execution. When the last Devourer exploded, only 14 minutes had passed since the first shot was fired. 23 bioships, each capable of destroying a Council frigate single-handedly, had been completely annihilated. The human fleet had not lost a single vessel. Vrelt checked the damage reports. 2 human ships showed moderate hull damage. 1 had lost partial shield capacity. Those were not casualties. Those were scratches. Impossible, Quillen breathed. The Devourer swarm destroyed the Kaltorian Third Fleet 60 years ago. 40 ships lost. How did 9 human vessels defeat twice that many without losses? Vrelt finally understood. Because humans do not fight like us. We plan for expected outcomes. We calculate acceptable losses. We follow established tactical doctrine. He gestured at the holographic display showing the wreckage of the battle. Humans plan for total victory. They calculate how to achieve 0 losses. They create doctrine as they fight. Director Thane's image appeared on their communication screen, his ancient features carved from stone. Get me Admiral Webb, now. The connection was established within moments. Webb appeared on screen, his uniform singed from fire suppression systems, a small cut above his left eye. Behind him, his bridge crew worked efficiently, already conducting post-battle assessments. Admiral Webb, Thane began, his voice carrying the weight of 12,000 years of civilization. The Council is grateful for your intervention. You saved approximately 4 million Kaltorian civilians. Webb nodded. That was the mission, Director. My teams are landing on the colony now to assist with recovery efforts. Your performance was extraordinary. I have reviewed the battle footage. I have questions. I expected you would, sir. Thane leaned forward. How did you defeat the Devourer swarm so easily? They are considered one of the most dangerous threats in known space. Webb was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Director, with respect, they were not particularly dangerous. Their tactics were predictable. They relied on overwhelming force rather than strategy. They assumed their biological advantages would be sufficient. He paused. They were wrong? Predictable? Quillen interrupted. The Devourers have destroyed countless civilizations. They adapt to any threat. They adapt slowly, Webb corrected. We counted 7 distinct tactical shifts during the engagement. Each one took them approximately 90 seconds to implement. That is an eternity in combat. He gestured to something off-screen. My weapons officer adapted our targeting solutions 4 times in the first 30 seconds. My helm officer changed our flight pattern 16 times. Adaptation is not an advantage if your enemy does it faster. Vrelt felt something cold settle in his chest. The humans were not just skilled at warfare. They had evolved to excel at it. Every fiber of their being was optimized for combat and competition. Thane asked the question that Vrelt was afraid to voice. Admiral, what would happen if the Council faced a threat we could not handle? A threat that exceeded our combined military capabilities? Webb's expression did not change, but something shifted in his eyes. A predator recognizing a serious question. Director, humanity has faced extinction-level threats 17 times in our recorded history. Sometimes from nature, sometimes from ourselves, sometimes from technology we created and could not control. He met Thane's gaze directly. We are still here. Our enemies are not? The statement hung in the air like a weapon. Quillen asked quietly, "What happened to those enemies, Admiral?" Webb's answer was simple and terrifying. We learned from them. We adapted to them. We became better at destroying them than they were at destroying us. He paused. And then we made certain they could never threaten us again. Vrelt understood what Webb was not saying. Humanity did not just defeat their enemies. They erased them so completely that they became cautionary tales. Thane ended the communication with formal thanks. But Vrelt could see the concern in the old director's eyes. That night, Vrelt accessed humanity's historical database again. He read about their wars, their weapons, their countless conflicts. He learned about strategic bombing, nuclear deterrence, mutually assured destruction, and dozens of other concepts that had no equivalent in galactic civilization. One phrase appeared repeatedly in human military doctrine: peace through superior firepower. Other species achieved peace through diplomacy. Understanding and cooperation, humans, achieved peace by making war so terrible that no one dared start. 1. The question that kept Vrelt awake was simple and haunting. What would happen when the galaxy discovered what humanity truly was? News of the battle at Hestrix Minor spread across the galaxy within days. The footage was shared on every communication network, analyzed by every military academy, and debated in every government chamber. The reaction was not what Vrelt expected. Most species viewed the human victory as a fortunate accident. They convinced themselves that the Devourers must have been weakened by millennia of hibernation, or that the humans had simply been lucky. Vrelt knew better. He had watched those recordings 100 times. Luck played no role in that battle. Only skill, preparation, and ruthless efficiency. The Council convened to discuss humanity's future. Director Thane opened the session with a simple question. Did we grant them full membership? The debate lasted for hours. Some delegates argued that humanity had proven their worth. Others worried about introducing a species so talented at destruction into galactic society. The Vorash representative expressed what many were thinking, but few dared say aloud. They frightened me, the crystalline being admitted. I watched them kill without hesitation, without remorse. What kind of species has weaponized their entire existence? Ambassador Quillen countered, a species that survives. Perhaps that is exactly what the galaxy needs. The vote was scheduled for the following week. In the meantime, human ships continued patrolling the outer fringe, protecting trade routes and responding to distress calls with the same mechanical efficiency they had shown at Hestrix Minor. Then the Kraloth Empire made their move. The Kraloth were not members of the Council. They were a militant species that controlled a small cluster of systems near the galactic rim, constantly probing Council borders for weaknesses. For decades, they had launched minor raids, testing defenses and stealing technology. Commander Vrelt was reviewing supply reports when the alert came through. 6 Kralith battlecruisers had crossed into Council space and attacked a mining station in the Tertius system. Early reports indicated heavy casualties. The nearest Council fleet was 9 days away. Protocol required a measured response, diplomatic protests, and eventual military action after all peaceful. Options were exhausted. The humans were 4 hours from Tertius. Vrelt pulled up the communication logs and saw that Admiral Webb had already received the distress signal. The human fleet was changing course. Without waiting for Council authorization, Vrelt immediately contacted Director Thane. The humans are responding to the Kralith attack. Thane's expression grew dark. We did not authorize this. The Kralith Empire is a sovereign power. If humans attack them unprovoked, it could mean war. The mining station sent a distress call. Under human protocols, that is sufficient justification. Human protocols are not council law. Thane activated his communication system. Get me Admiral Webb. The connection took several minutes to establish. When Webb appeared on screen, his bridge was at battle stations. Red lighting bathed the crew in crimson shadows. Admiral Webb, you are ordered to stand down, Thane commanded. Do not engage the Kralith. This is a matter for council diplomacy. Webb listened without interrupting. When Thane finished, the human admiral spoke carefully. Director, with all due respect, there are approximately 800 people on that mining station. Current estimates suggest half are already dead. The Kralith are not raiders. They are executing civilians. That does not change the political reality. If you attack a sovereign power without council authorization, you will create an incident we cannot control. Director, I understand your concern, but I took an oath when I joined the military. I swore to protect the innocent from those who would harm them. Webb's voice hardened. I do not require authorization to honor that oath. Thane leaned forward, his voice dropping to a growl. If you proceed, the council cannot support you. You will be acting alone. I understand, sir. Admiral, you are risking war. Webb was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his words were measured and cold. Director, humanity has been at war for 5,000 years. If the Kralith want to dance, we know the steps. The transmission ended. Vrelt stared at the blank screen, his mind racing. He is going to do it. He is going to attack them. Thane nodded slowly. Yes, and if he succeeds, it will change everything. If he fails... The old director did not finish the thought. Vrelt accessed the tactical feed from the Tertius system. The Kralith battlecruisers were massive vessels, each one carrying enough firepower to level a city. They orbited the mining station like vultures, launching sporadic attacks on the surviving structures. The human fleet appeared at the edge of the system exactly 4 hours after the initial distress call. 7 ships against 6 Kralith cruisers. The numbers were almost even, but Kralith vessels were legendary for their heavy armor and powerful weapons. Webb did not bother with warnings or demands for surrender. The human fleet simply opened fire. The Kralith responded with shock and outrage, their commanders broadcasting furious protests even as their ships maneuvered to engage. They formed a defensive wall, presenting their strongest armor toward the human fleet. It was the tactically correct response. It was also exactly what Webb wanted them to do, while the Kralith focused on the approaching human cruisers. 2 human destroyers had circled wide, approaching from the opposite direction at maximum speed. They dove toward the mining station, positioning themselves between the Kralith and the civilians. The Kralith commander recognized the tactic too late. If he fired on the human destroyers, he risked hitting the mining station. If he ignored them, they would attack his ships from behind. He chose to continue targeting the human cruisers, assuming he could destroy them quickly, and then deal with the destroyers. He was wrong. Human missiles struck the Kralith formation from 3 directions simultaneously. The heavy armor that made Kralith ships so dangerous also made them slow. They could not evade the carefully coordinated barrage. 2 cruisers took critical damage in the first 30 seconds. Their hulls ruptured, atmosphere venting into space through massive tears in their armor plating. The remaining Kralith ships broke formation, each commander making the individual decision to flee. It was a catastrophic mistake. Human vessels ran them down one by one, targeting engines and weapon systems with practiced precision. Within 12 minutes, all 6 Kraloth cruisers were disabled or destroyed. The human fleet suffered minor damage to their shields and nothing more. Vrelt watched the aftermath in silence. Human marines were already boarding the mining station, evacuating survivors and providing medical assistance. Their movements were efficient and practiced, as if they rescued civilians from war zones every day. Perhaps they did. The political fallout was immediate and severe. The Kraloth Empire demanded justice for the attack on their vessels. They called humanity criminals and murderers. They threatened retaliation. Admiral Webb responded with a single transmission broadcast across all known communication channels. To the Kraloth Empire. You attacked a civilian mining station in Council space. You murdered approximately 400 unarmed workers. Under human law, this is an act of terrorism and a crime against sentient life. Webb's image was calm, but his words carried the weight of iron. Humanity does not negotiate with terrorists. We do not debate their grievances. We eliminate them. He paused, letting the words sink in. You have 48 hours to withdraw all military forces from Council borders. If you do not comply, we will consider a declaration of war. And if you choose war with humanity, understand this. We will not stop until every weapon you possess is slag, every ship you fly is debris, and every leader who ordered this attack is held accountable. The transmission ended, the galaxy held its breath. Vrelt found himself in Director Thane's office along with Ambassador Quillen and a dozen other senior council members. The mood was tense. He has overstepped, one delegate argued. He cannot threaten a sovereign empire without council approval. He just did, Quillen observed dryly. This could mean total war, another voice protested. The Kraloth have allies. Other militant species who will see this as council aggression. Director Thane raised a hand for silence. The question is not what humanity has done. The question is what we do now. Vrelt spoke for the first time. We support them. Every head turned toward him. Humanity acted to protect council citizens when we could not. They eliminated a threat that has plagued our borders for decades. And most importantly, Vrelt called up the tactical analysis on his display. They demonstrated that the Kraloth can be defeated. Every militant species watching this will learn the same lesson. Attacking Council territory has consequences. Thane studied him for a long moment. You are suggesting we use humanity as a weapon? I am suggesting we recognize what they are. Humanity is a species that excels at one thing above all others: winning wars. We can spend the next decade debating whether that makes them dangerous or valuable. Vrelt gestured at the holographic display showing the wreckage of Kraloth ships. Or we can accept that the galaxy is changing, and we need them. The vote was held the next day. The council granted humanity full membership by a margin of 32 votes to 15. The announcement was met with celebration by some species and fear by others. The Kraloth Empire protested violently, but they also withdrew their forces from council borders within the 48-hour deadline. They had seen what humanity could do. They chose survival over pride. But Vrelt knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy had noticed humanity now, and not everyone would react with fear or respect. Some would react with ambition. Some would see humanity not as protectors, but as threats to be eliminated. The real test was still coming. The Confederation of United Systems watched humanity's rise with growing alarm. The Confederation was not part of the Galactic Council. They were an alliance of 12 species who believed the Council had grown weak and corrupt. For 200 years, they had expanded their territory through carefully calculated aggression, always stopping just short of provoking full-scale war. Their supreme commander, a being named Draxus from the warrior species of Talmor, studied the intelligence reports on humanity with cold calculation. He had watched the battle at Hestrix Minor dozens of times. He had analyzed the Kraloth defeat frame by frame. His conclusion was simple: humanity was dangerous, but not invincible. They are skilled, he admitted to his council of war, but they are few. 300 ships cannot defend an entire galaxy. And skill means nothing when you are overwhelmed by pure numbers. General Kresh, his second-in-command, gestured at the tactical displays. Our intelligence suggests humans use advanced computers to coordinate their attacks. If we disrupt their communications, their advantage disappears. Draxus nodded slowly. How many ships can we deploy without weakening our core defenses? 2,000 battle cruisers, 5,000 support vessels. Against 300 human ships? Draxus showed his teeth in what might have been a smile. Those are acceptable odds? Prepare the fleet. Commander Vrelt learned of the Confederation buildup from Council intelligence assets. The numbers were staggering. 7,000 warships assembling at the Confederation border, all conducting combat drills and weapons tests. They are preparing to invade Council space. Vrelt reported to Director Thane. Our analysts believe humanity is their primary target. Thane studied the reports with ancient eyes. To destroy us, they must first destroy our newest and most effective defenders. Eliminate humanity, and the rest of the Council falls easily. He looked up. How long do we have? 3 weeks. Perhaps 4? And our response? Vrelt hesitated. Director, our combined fleet is approximately 12,000 vessels. But they are scattered across 47 different systems, protecting individual homeworlds. To gather them would take months. By then, the Confederation could have conquered a dozen systems. What does Admiral Webb say? We have not told him yet. Thane's expression hardened. Why not? Because ... Vrelt chose his words carefully. Because if we tell humanity that 7,000 enemy ships are coming to destroy them, I do not know how they will react. They will fight. That is what they do. Yes, but Director, what if they decide the Council is not worth defending? What if they retreat to their home system and fortify it? 300 ships cannot stop 7,000. The logical choice is to withdraw and survive. Thane was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something Vrelt had never seen in 200 years of service. The ancient director smiled. Commander, you still do not understand them. Humanity does not make the logical choice. They make the winning choice. And if you believe those are the same thing, you have not been paying attention. The communication was sent directly to Admiral Webb marked with the highest priority. Vrelt watched as the message was transmitted. Wondering if he had just condemned humanity to extinction, Webb's response came 6 hours later. He requested a private meeting with Council leadership. No aides, no advisors, no recording systems. Vrelt found himself in a sealed conference room with Director Thane. Ambassador Quillen and Admiral Marcus Webb. The human looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes and several days' growth of beard. But his eyes were sharp and focused. 7,000 ships, Webb said without preamble. Commanded by Draxus of Talmor, one of the finest military minds in the galaxy. Their objective is to destroy humanity, break Council resistance, and conquer 15 core systems within 6 months. That is our assessment, Thane confirmed. Webb nodded slowly. Director, I need complete access to Council military databases. Fleet positions, defensive capabilities, ammunition stockpiles, everything. Why? Because I cannot defend the Council with 300 ships. But I might be able to with 12,000. Vrelt felt his heart skip. You want command of the entire Council fleet? I want to coordinate with them. Every species maintains independent command of their vessels. I respect that. But if we are going to survive this, we need to fight as one force, not 47 separate militaries. Quillen leaned forward. Admiral, many species will resist taking orders from humanity. You are the newest members of the Council. Some will see this as an insult. Webb's expression did not change. Ambassador, I do not care about politics. I care about winning. Any species that wants to fight this battle their own way is welcome to do so. But they will do it without human support. He paused. And when the Confederation breaks through their defenses, we will not be there to save them. The bluntness was shocking, but Vrelt found himself nodding. Webb was right. This was not the time for diplomatic niceties. Thane made his decision. you will have your access. But Admiral, understand this. If you fail, humanity will be remembered as the species that led the Council to destruction. And if I succeed, then humanity will be remembered as the species that saved it. Webb stood, offering a crisp salute. I can live with those stakes, Director. Over the next 2 weeks, Webb did something no one thought possible. He transformed the scattered Council fleet into a unified fighting force. He did not do it by demanding obedience or pulling rank. He did it by convincing every species that cooperation meant survival. He held individual meetings with each fleet commander, explaining his strategy in detail, answering every question, addressing every concern. Vrelt watched as species that had barely spoken to each other in centuries began coordinating their movements. The rigid, territorial mindset that had defined Council military doctrine for thousands of years began to crack. Webb introduced concepts that seemed insane at first. Mixed species crews on critical vessels, shared intelligence networks, combined training exercises, resources pooled across species boundaries. He is building something new, Quillen observed. Not a Council fleet, but a galactic military. The Confederation arrived exactly when Council intelligence predicted. 7,000 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Council space. Their formation perfect, their intent clear. Supreme Commander Draxus broadcast his demands on all frequencies. The Galactic Council has sheltered a dangerous species. Humanity must be surrendered to the Confederation for judgment. Comply, and this ends peacefully. Resist, and we will take them by force. Admiral Webb's response was broadcast from the bridge of his flagship with 12,000 Council vessels arrayed behind him in perfect formation. Supreme Commander Draxus, you have entered Council space with hostile intent. You have threatened member species. You have 1 hour to withdraw. If you do not comply, we will consider your presence an act of war. Draxus laughed. The sound echoed across the communication channels like breaking stone. Admiral Webb, I have studied your tactics. I have analyzed your victories. You are skilled, but you are outnumbered 6-1. Surrender now, and I will allow your crew to evacuate before we destroy your ships. Webb's expression remained neutral. Commander, I appreciate the offer, but I have a counter-proposal. I am listening. Look at the fleet behind me. 47 different species. Thousands of years of combined military experience. Different technologies, different tactics, different strengths. Webb paused. Now look at your fleet. 12 species, all using similar doctrine, similar weapons, similar thinking. Your point? My point is that you are predictable. And in warfare, predictability is death. Draxus cut the transmission. The Confederation fleet advanced in a wall formation. Their strongest ships forming the front line. Their support vessels protected behind layers of armor and firepower. It was textbook military doctrine, proven effective over centuries of warfare. Webb watched them come and spoke 3 quiet words to his fleet. Execute pattern Delta. The Council fleet scattered like startled birds. Ships broke formation in every direction, abandoning the traditional defensive line that the Confederation expected. For a moment, it looked like panic, like a complete loss of cohesion. Draxus saw the chaos and smiled. All ships, advance. Engage at will. His fleet surged forward, individual commanders selecting targets and opening fire. The carefully maintained formation began to fragment as ships pursued, fleeing. Council vessels. That was when Webb sprang his trap. The scattering Council ships had not fled randomly. They had moved to precise coordinates, creating gaps in the Confederation formation. As Draxus's ships pushed forward into those gaps, they suddenly found themselves isolated from their support vessels. Human ships appeared from the flanks, targeting the isolated Confederation vessels with coordinated fire. Other Council species joined the attack, each one focusing on specific enemy weaknesses that Webb had identified during his analysis of their technology. A Vorish crystalline cruiser used resonance weapons to shatter the shields of Talmor battleships. Keltorian vessels deployed gravitic mines that disabled engine systems. Tasharan ships used their advanced sensors to identify critical systems and relay, targeting data across the entire fleet. And human ships were everywhere, adapting to each new threat, exploiting every opening, coordinating the entire massive battle like a conductor leading an orchestra. Draxus watched in growing horror as his numerical advantage became meaningless. His ships could not support each other. They could not mass their firepower. They were being picked apart by an enemy that fought like nothing he had ever encountered. He tried to reform his fleet, pulling his vessels back into defensive positions. But Webb anticipated the move, and human destroyers launched devastating hit-and-run attacks on any ship that tried to establish a defensive line. The battle lasted 8 hours. When it ended, 1,900 Confederation vessels were destroyed or disabled. The remaining ships retreated in disorder, abandoning their wounded and fleeing back toward their own territory. Council losses were 436 vessels. Significant but not catastrophic. Drx had brought 7,000 ships to conquer the Council. He limped home with barely 5,000 intact. Vrelt stood on the bridge of his command ship, watching the tactical display as the last Confederation vessel disappeared into faster-than-light travel. Around him, crews from a dozen different species worked together, coordinating recovery efforts and assisting damaged vessels. Something had changed today. Something fundamental. Director Thane's voice came through on the communication channel. Admiral Webb, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I thank you. You have achieved what many thought impossible. Webb appeared on screen, his uniform torn and burned in several places. We achieved it together, Director. Every species contributed. Every commander fought with courage and skill. But you led us. You showed us how to fight as one force rather than 47 separate militaries. Webb was quiet for a moment. Director, I did not show you anything you did not already know. I just reminded you that survival requires unity, and unity requires trust. He paused. The galaxy is changing. There will be other threats, other enemies. But if we face them together, there is nothing we cannot overcome. The transmission ended. Quillen turned to Vrelt. He was right. About all of it. Vrelt nodded slowly. Humanity did not save the Council with their weapons or their tactics. They saved it by teaching us to stop fighting alone. But even as victory celebrations echoed across Council space, Vrelt fell. A whisper of concern. Today, humanity had proven they could lead the galaxy in war. The question was, what would they do in peace? 6 months after the Great Battle, Commander Vrelt walked through the corridors of Unity Station, the newly constructed headquarters for the Council Joint Defense Force. The station represented something unprecedented in galactic history. A truly unified military command where all member species worked together as equals. It had been Admiral Webb's idea. Vrelt found the human admiral in one of the training simulators, watching as a mixed crew of Kaltorian, Voresh, and human officers practiced combat scenarios. The team moved with practice coordination, each species contributing their unique strengths to solve complex tactical problems. Remarkable, Vrelt said quietly. 6 months ago, these species barely spoke to each other. Now they function as a single unit. Webb nodded without taking his eyes off the simulation. People are capable of extraordinary things when they have a common purpose. And right now, that purpose is staying alive in a dangerous galaxy. The simulation ended. The mixed crew had successfully defeated an enemy force twice their size, using coordinated tactics that no single species could have executed alone. They celebrated together, differences forgotten in the shared joy of victory. You have changed the Council, Vrelt observed. Not just our military, but our entire society. Species that saw themselves as rivals now see themselves as allies. That was always the potential. I just helped unlock it. Vrelt studied the human carefully. There are some who fear what humanity has become. You are the most influential voice in the Council now. Your word carries more weight than Director Thane's in many matters. Some worry about what you will do with that power. Webb turned to face him directly. Commander, let me tell you about power. On Earth, we learned a hard lesson over thousands of years. Power concentrated in one place always leads to corruption. Always, it does not matter how noble the intentions, how wise the leaders. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Then what is your intention? To make myself unnecessary. Webb gestured at the training simulator. That crew does not need me anymore. They have learned to think like a unified force. In a few years, the entire council military will be the same. And when that happens, I will step down and return to Earth. Vrelt felt surprise ripple through him. You would give up your position? It was never about position, Commander. It was about survival. Humanity joined the council because we believe civilization is better than chaos, cooperation better than conflict. But we also know that power must be distributed, not concentrated. The moment the council depends on one species, one leader, one voice, it becomes vulnerable. Before Vrelt could respond, an urgent communication interrupted them. Director Thane's face appeared on the screen, his expression grave. Admiral Webb, Commander Vrelt, we have a situation. Please come to the council chamber immediately. They arrived to find the chamber filled with anxious delegates. Director Thane stood at the center, a holographic display showing a region of space at the edge of known territory. 3 hours ago, we detected unusual energy readings from Sector 15. Initial scans suggested a spatial anomaly. We sent a science vessel to investigate. Thane's voice was steady, but Vrelt could hear the tension beneath it. The vessel has not reported back. All attempts at communication have failed. Ambassador Quillen activated another display. We sent a second ship with military escort. They found the science vessel abandoned and damaged. And they found this. The image that appeared made Vrelt's blood run cold. A massive structure hung in space, clearly artificial but unlike any technology in council databases. It pulsed with dark energy, and around it, space itself seemed to twist and bend. What is it? Someone asked. A new voice answered from the shadows at the edge of the chamber. It is a gateway. Everyone turned. A figure stepped into the light, a species Vrelt had never seen before. Humanoid but taller, with skin that shimmered like starlight and eyes that held depths of ancient knowledge. I am Observer Elindis of the Progenitor Archive, the being said. My people have watched over this galaxy for 50,000 years. We do not interfere in the development of younger species. But this situation requires our intervention. Director Thane recovered from his shock. You are welcome, Observer. Please explain what we are seeing. Elindis gestured at the holographic display. That structure is a trans-dimensional gateway constructed by a species we call the Void Collective. They exist outside normal space-time, in dimensions your physics cannot yet describe. Every few thousand years, they open gateways into our reality to harvest biological matter and energy. Harvest? Quillen's feathers stood on end. You mean they consume civilizations? Yes, the last time they entered this galaxy, they destroyed 43 species before the gateway could be closed. That was 8,000 years ago. Your council did not exist yet. Most of your member species had not achieved spaceflight. Webb spoke for the first time, his voice calm but focused. How do we close the gateway? Elindis studied the human with interest. Direct, I appreciate that. The gateway must be destroyed from within. A strike team must enter the structure, reach its core, and overload the power systems. This will cause a cascade failure that collapses the gateway. How long do we have? The gateway is currently in its activation phase. In approximately 72 hours, it will open completely. Once that happens, void collective entities will begin entering our dimension. Based on historical data, they will consume this entire sector of space within 6 months. Vrelt felt despair creeping through him. Even if we close this gateway, will they not simply open another? No, the energy expenditure required to create a gateway is immense. If we close this one, the Void Collective will not have sufficient resources to attempt another breach for at least 10,000 years. Director Thane looked around the chamber. Then we must act. I'm calling for volunteers for the strike team. Admiral Webb stepped forward without hesitation. Humanity will provide the core team. As will the Sasharan military, Vrelt said. Surprising himself with his own words, other species quickly added their voices. Keltorian engineers, Vorish energy specialists, Talmor warriors seeking redemption for their past aggression. Within minutes, a multi-species strike force was assembled. Elindis watched with something that might have been approval. This cooperation would not have been possible 6 months ago. Perhaps there is hope for you after all. The next 70 hours were a blur of preparation. Webb assembled a team of 30 soldiers, engineers, and specialists from a dozen different species. They trained together, studied the limited data available on the gateway structure, and prepared for a mission that might be one way. Vrelt found himself selected as second in command. As he packed his equipment, Ambassador Quillen approached him. You do not have to do this, Commander. You are a senior military officer. You have already served the Council with distinction. That is exactly why I must do this, Vrelt replied. How can I ask others to risk everything if I am not willing to do the same? Quillen's feathers ruffled in a gesture of respect. You have learned much from the humans. We all have. The strike team departed on a specially modified ship designed to penetrate the gateway's energy field. As they approached the structure, Vrelt felt reality itself begin to warp around them. Space and time became suggestions rather than laws. Entering gateway perimeter, the pilot announced. The ship shuddered as strange forces gripped it. They passed through the outer membrane and found themselves inside a structure that defied comprehension. Corridors twisted in impossible directions. Gravity shifted without warning. Energy patterns formed and dissolved like living things. This place exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously, one of the Kaltorian scientists explained. Our instruments cannot properly map it. Webb studied the chaotic sensor readings. Then we do this the old-fashioned way. We move forward and adapt to whatever we find. The team advanced through the gateway, encountering obstacles that tested every skill they possessed. Void entities materialized from darkness, creatures of pure energy that attacked with alien ferocity. Environmental hazards shifted without warning. The structure itself seemed to actively resist their presence, but the multi-species team proved more adaptable than the gateway could anticipate. Tasharan warriors engaged the void entities while Vorish specialists disrupted their energy patterns. Human engineers bypassed security systems while Kaltorian scientists analyzed the gateway's power flow. They worked together perfectly, each species compensating for the others. Weaknesses, Vrelt found himself fighting alongside a young human soldier named Jackson. The man moved with the characteristic human efficiency, but also with something else, courage. Not the absence of fear, but the ability to function despite it. How do your people do it? Vrelt asked during a brief rest. How do I? Oh, face impossible odds and still believe you can win? Jackson smiled. Commander, humanity learned a long time ago that impossible just means nobody has figured out how yet. Give us enough time, and we will find a way. They reached the gateway's core after 20 hours of continuous fighting and problem-solving. The chamber was massive, filled with pulsing energy that hurt to look at directly. At its center, a crystalline structure channeled power from sources Vrelt could not identify. This is it, Webb said quietly. We overload this, the whole thing collapses. The Kaltorian engineer examined the structure. It will take at least 15 minutes to properly set the overload sequence, and someone will need to stay behind to ensure it completes. The implication was clear. This was a one-way mission. Vrelt started to volunteer, but Webb stopped him. Commander, the Council needs experienced officers to rebuild after this. I am staying. That is not up for debate. Admiral, you are too valuable. I am a soldier, Commander. This is what soldiers do. Webb turned to the rest of the team. Everyone else, get back to the ship. You have 14 minutes. Move. The team hesitated. No one wanted to leave their commander behind. Webb's voice hardened. That was an order. Move out. Slowly, reluctantly, the team began to withdraw. Vrelt was the last to leave. Admiral, humanity will remember what you did here. I hope they remember why I did it, Commander. Not for glory. Not for power. But because protecting others is the highest calling anyone can answer, Webb paused. Now go. And make sure the galaxy we fought for becomes the galaxy we hoped for. Vrelt ran. The team made it back to their ship with 90 seconds to spare. As they cleared the gateway perimeter, the structure began to collapse. Energy patterns imploded, dimensional walls fractured, and the entire massive construct folded in on itself in a cascade of impossible geometries. Then it was gone. The space where the gateway had existed was empty, showing only stars and normal vacuum. Admiral Marcus Webb was gone with it. The journey back to Council space was silent. Vrelt sat alone, processing what had happened. Humanity had given the galaxy their finest leader, their most brilliant strategist, their greatest warrior, and he had sacrificed himself without hesitation when they arrived at Unity Station. Vrelt was met by Director Thane and the assembled council. The funeral service was held with full military honors. Attended by representatives from every member species, Elindis the Observer spoke at the ceremony. In 50,000 years, my people have watched countless civilizations rise and fall. We have seen great heroes and terrible villains. But rarely have we seen someone who understood the true nature of strength. The ancient being looked across the assembled mourners. Strength is not the ability to destroy your enemies. Strength is the willingness to sacrifice yourself for those you protect. Admiral Webb embodied this truth. He showed you that humanity's greatest weapon was never their technology or tactics. It was their unwavering commitment to stand between innocence and harm, no matter the cost. As the service concluded, Vrelt found himself standing before a memorial constructed in Webb's honor. The inscription was simple, taken from humanity's own military traditions. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. Ambassador Quillen approached quietly. What will humanity do now? They have lost their finest leader. Vrelt thought about Jackson, the young soldier who had fought beside him, about the countless other humans serving throughout Council space, about Webb's final words. They will continue, Vrelt said with certainty, because that is what humans do. They face impossible challenges, they sacrifice everything, and they never stop fighting for what they believe in. Webb taught us that. Not through speeches or demands, but through his example. He looked up at the stars, imagining the countless worlds now safe because of one man's courage. The galaxy learned humanity's true strength. It was never about their weapons or their tactics. It was about their refusal to abandon hope, even when surrounded by darkness. That is the legacy Admiral Webb left us. And it is a legacy worth protecting. Quillen's feathers rustled in agreement. Together they stood in silence, honoring the memory of the man who had shown the galaxy what humanity truly was, not conquerors. Not destroyers, but defenders willing to sacrifice everything to protect the innocent. And in that moment Vrelt understood. The galaxy had not just gained a new member species, it had gained its conscience.